remember one of the senior editors basically got up on a chair and said, "This is the biggest story that most of us are ever going to live through."
For all intents and purposes, we consumed the news and the events of the day much like everybody for at least a couple hours in the morning, right? Just sitting at the television waiting to see what unfolded.
There was a period where there was, a few hours where nobody really understood what was happening. Nobody knew what was going on. And, you knew Washington had been hit. You knew New York had been hit. You didn't exclude that Philadelphia could be hit. So there was a few hours where we were really worried about that.
I went to the DP, and the most incredible thing, and I think what underscores what's so special about the DP, is I didn't have to tell anyone to come in. Everyone just knew. Everyone wanted to be together in a place that felt safe, and it was an emotional time, a lot of tears, a lot of people hugging. We were watching on an old tube TV that we had in the newsroom.
I don't think anybody really knew how to react. I think this was kind of before a lot of, for many of us, any real exposure to kind of a mass trauma situation or an event, be it nationally or locally, that's so disruptive that there's kind of a process in place for something like this.
I do remember, finally calling everyone into the newsroom, standing sort of at the center, and I took, we had these big kind of easel style paper that you could giant Post-its essentially. And we just started jotting down different story ideas.
What do we do? How can we have all these resources that want to help. How do we sort of help our campus process what's going on?
So basically got the guidance, drop everything you're doing. It didn't matter what you were covering. This was going to be it.
Every single reporter came up to me and said, what should I be writing? Who should I be calling? What should I be doing? And people were looking for community in that moment. And that was one of the ways we had one.
So I wasn't part of the coverage discussions, but I, on the other hand, had to worry about how I basically pull together coherent opinion and analysis about something that quite literally nobody really understands. And that was incredibly hard, not because people weren't interested in being helpful, but sincerely, I just don't think even learned folks of the faculty and staff at the university, I don't know that anybody had much to say initially. I think there was so much to process, get their arms wrapped around.
As a copy editor, your job doesn't really begin until everything comes in and we're doing layout and the pieces are there and you're looking for typos and clarity. That said, anybody who didn't have something to do was, raise your hand and say, what can I do? And so I was out there finding students to interview and things like that over the course of the day.
Our copy editor got on a West Philly bus and was like, I just started interviewing people in West Philadelphia. While the DP is a student paper, it's also one of the bigger papers in Philadelphia, and people in West Philly absolutely go to the paper. And so there was also a sense of, this might, for people who don't get papers delivered every day or don't have the internet, this might be the paper they get today.
A record of newspaper headlines from newspapers around the country, around the world of that day. Nobody covered it as straight an accounting of events as the DP that did that day. The headline is something like terrorist attack, New York, Washington, says what happened.
For all the talk about, wanting this to be an historic front page, we were gathered, in the wee hours that night. I was sitting, at the computer, finalizing the layout, getting ready to send it to the printer, which is, the moment of truth. There's no pulling it back. And Stacy Frazier, who you mentioned, who was our campus news editor and a close friend to this day, I'm about to hit send and she screams, wait. And we're like, what is it? We were so focused on September 11th, and this was already being billed as a day that would live in infamy. The date we had on the next day's paper was September 11th, 2001. Of course, it was the September 12th edition. So Stacy saved us at the last minute. We would have had the all-time greatest typo on our historic front page. And I'm thankful to this day that she caught it.